By the end of Season 3, Invincible has evolved from the kid who got absolutely destroyed by Omni-Man into someone finally living up to the name. But the question everyone wants to know the answer to is, could the current Invincible beat Conquest in a rematch? Well, the answer might surprise you, and it all comes down to one key detail that changes everything: Mark's evolution. Let's trace Mark's journey through Season 3 to understand exactly who we're dealing with by Episode 8. Season 3 picks up months after Mark defeated Angstrom Levy, but struggled with trauma. The season emphasizes his evolution from novice hero to becoming an actual Viltrumite, not a pussy, facing multiversal threats, personal dilemmas, and the Viltrum Empire's encroachment. Under Cecil Stedman's oversight at the GDA, Mark undergoes intense training specifically designed to counter Viltrumites. In the early episodes, Donald Ferguson reports concrete numbers: speed up 65%, endurance up 70%, overall strength increased to match threats that previously overwhelmed him.
Over the last 90 days, Mark's speed has increased 65%, his endurance 70%, and his strength 138%.
A 65% speed increase puts Mark in a completely different category than Season 1 or 2. A 70% endurance increase means he can fight longer, take more punishment, recover faster. He receives a new black and blue suit from Art Rosenbaum, symbolizing maturity, but the suit isn't the upgrade. Mark's body is. The battles throughout Season 3 forge him. Doc Seismic tests his raw power. Powerplex, enhanced to absorb kinetic energy and fire electrical blasts, forces Mark to fight smart. The 18 evil multiversal variants during the Invincible War push him to his absolute limit. These aren't just wins on his record, they're experiences that trigger Viltrumite biological adaptation. Because as we know, Viltrumites grow stronger through near-death experiences and combat. Every time Mark gets knocked down and gets back up, his body is literally rewriting itself to be more powerful. By season's end, Mark is traumatized but empowered. He vows to kill family threats. He attends Rexplode's funeral, reflecting on his burdens. He's no longer the naive hero who thought he could save everyone. He's become something harder, more focused, more willing to do what's necessary.
If anyone else ever puts my family or anyone I love at risk, I won't hesitate to kill them.
Then comes the Conquest fight in Episode 8, and this is where everything changes. Current Mark, as we're defining him, is Mark at the very end of Season 3 after the Conquest battle. Let's be specific about what happened in that fight because it defines current Mark's capabilities. Strength has reached new peaks through Crisis. Mark lifts and throws a big-ass iceberg and some super weightlifting set during training. He survives city-level destruction in fights. During the Conquest battle, he crushes Conquest skull with repeated headbutts. That's Viltrumite skull-shattering force generated from someone who couldn't match Conquest strength for strength at the fight's start. In alternate timelines shown, he kills a tyrannical future immortal by decapitation after brutal combat. That's not just strength, that's applying lethal force with precision against an unkillable opponent. Well, somewhat unkillable. Speed has increased 65% from training. Mark traverses global distances in seconds.
I could have done it faster, but I got lost on the way back again.
That was still plenty fast, Mark.
When evil variants attack, he reacts to faster than light attacks. Not perfectly, but he reacts, processes, begins countering. The gap between Season 1 Mark, who couldn't keep up with his father, and Season 3 Mark, who can track FTL movement, is enormous. Durability has been tested at extremes. Mark tanks city-destroying impacts. During the Conquest fight, Conquest pushes his body to very near breaking point. Mark should have died in that fight, but plot armor saved him and he survived. Regeneration functions on accelerated timelines. He heals from maiming injuries like broken bones and internal trauma in days. The 70% endurance increase means he recovers faster from damage that used to sideline him for weeks. Combat prowess has evolved through necessity. Mark defeats Powerplex without serious injury. He battles 18 evil multiversal variants, overpowering several solo with relative ease. These variants cause widespread devastation and kill heroes. Mark survives fighting multiple versions of himself simultaneously. The rage factor acts as during the Conquest fight. This is critical. When pushed to his absolute limit, when everything is on the line, Mark taps into something beyond his baseline. He bites into Conquest's shoulder in desperation. He crushes a Viltrumite skull through sheer refusal to die. That rage-fueled state is part of current Mark's arsenal now and is likely the adrenaline from his human side. Viltrumite adaptation from near death. The Conquest fight pushed Mark closer to death than almost anything before. According to how Viltrumite biology functions, that near-death experience triggers adaptation. Current Mark, immediately post-fight, is stronger than Mark at the fight's start. But here's the question: is all that growth enough to beat Conquest without Eve's intervention? To answer that, we might need to look at what Conquest brings to the table. Conquest is a veteran Viltrumite hero, the second most powerful after Thrag, serving as the Empire's nuclear option for maximum destruction on target planets.
the other Viltrumites are scared of me. I am a victim of my own success. Conquest, only a purpose.
Millennia old, he mentored Omni-Man and survived the Scourge virus, though it impaired his regeneration and led to a cybernetic arm. His scarred, elderly appearance with balding gray hair, blinded eye, and prosthetic arm reflects countless battles. His personality is sadistic, reveling in violence and psychological torment, viewing conquests as pretexts for bloodlust. Strength overpowers Season 3 Mark initially. Conquest's power is immense. He generates city-leveling shockwaves. During their Episode 8 fight, he uses Mark as a weapon to slaughter civilians. He overpowers Mark repeatedly throughout prolonged battle, causing mass destruction. He survives a Ragnar mauling while weakened by Scourge virus. He nearly kills Adam Eve with a single punch. When Conquest hits something, it breaks. Durability survives severe punishment. High durability throughout the Season 3 fight. He tanks hits from Mark, survives Eve's full power blast that burns off his skin, and keeps fighting after Mark crushes his skull.
Got more than enough fight left in me for you, boy. More than enough.
Eventually, he gets imprisoned, healing slowly, but he survives what should have killed him. But there's a critical weakness. His durability wanes post-injury. The Scourge virus permanently impaired his regeneration. He cannot regrow lost limbs, which is why that cybernetic arm exists. Speed outpaces Earth's fastest beings. Exceptional speed that gave Season 3 Mark serious problem. Conquest attacks from angles Mark struggles to predict at speeds that give minimal reaction time. He crosses global distances rapidly, and in combat, moves fast enough that Mark at fight start can't track him consistently. Combat experience spans millennia, centuries of brutal efficiency and mentorship. He taught Omni-Man, which proves his knowledge is extensive. He employs psychological warfare, targeting loved ones and mocking pain to break opponents mentally before finishing them physically.
Oh, such a strong bond. Viltrumites have nothing like this. It's a weakness, really.
The Episode 8 fight shows his limits. Conquest dominates initially, nearly killing Mark. Mark rallies with rage, biting Conquest's shoulder. Adam Eve intervenes, burning off Conquest's skin with her blast. Mark finishes with headbutts, crushing Conquest's skull until he stops moving. That fight proves Conquest needed combined efforts to be defeated. Mark alone wasn't enough at fight's start, but Mark at fight's end, after adaptation kicked in, was crushing Conquest's skull. The question is whether that growth persists into a rematch. We've established both fighters, so now we can look at realistic scenarios of what would actually happen if current Invincible fought Conquest. Scenario 1, immediate rematch. Mark faces Conquest again immediately after their first fight. No extended recovery, just round 2 starting as soon as both fighters can stand.
I am your last chance to fulfill your duty.
The only thing I want to do right now is hit something as hard as I can.
Good.
Mark has the advantage of fresh adaptation. His body processed the near-death experience and enhanced itself. The 65% speed increase and 70% endurance increase are fully active. He knows Conquest's tactics now, knows the psychological warfare, knows how Conquest fights. But Conquest also knows Mark now. He sees Mark's rage mode, seen how Mark fights when desperate, seen that Mark can crush Viltrumite skulls when pushed hard enough. Conquest adjusts his approach. The fight starts with Conquest testing Mark's improvements. Those initial strikes that overwhelmed early fight Mark don't work as well now. Mark's enhanced speed lets him evade or counter more effectively. His enhanced endurance means the prolonged battle favors him more than before. Mark would exploit Conquest's weakness of only having one arm since the prosthetic broke. But the critical factor is whether Mark can access that rage state again without the emotional trigger of civilians dying. In their first fight, seeing people slaughtered and Eve die pushed Mark past his limits.
Eve, you don't live to see tomorrow.
In a rematch without that stimulus, can he reach the same intensity? Most likely, yes. And also Mark has the upper hand literally because he has 2 hands and would have gone much stronger from their first fight. Not to mention that Conquest wouldn't regenerate very well. So I think this would be a very close call, but overall Mark is taking the dub here, especially if he attacks aggressively from the start. Scenario 2, Mark fights smart. Cecil's training taught Mark to counter Viltrumite specifically. Mark knows high frequency sounds disrupt Viltrumite equilibrium.
Remember that giant lobster you tangled with in Atlantis? Turns out we can transmit it to your earpiece. Apart from causing you pain, the sound also messes up your inner ear.
He knows extreme force to specific points can bypass durability. He knows Conquest's regeneration is compromised. The strategy involves wearing Conquest down. Don't trade blow strength for strength where Conquest still has advantages. Use superior speed from the 65 increase to hit and run. Exploit him having only one arm, target areas where damage is permanent, target injuries from their first fight that haven't fully healed, like his chomped face. Mark's growth through Season 3 includes fighting smarter. Against Powerplex, he adapted to energy absorption. Against multiversal variants, experience, he found weaknesses in versions of himself. Against Conquest, he learned that brute force alone isn't enough. But Conquest's psychological warfare targets Mark's emotional vulnerabilities. He goes after Eve, threatens Earth, mocks Mark's failures. This worked brilliantly in their first fight. Mark's emotional reactions made him fight stupid, made him vulnerable. Current Mark has processed some of that trauma. The vow to kill family threats shows harder mentality, but he's still the same Mark who cares deeply about people. Those emotional buttons still exist for Conquest to push. This would all cause Mark to push past his limits again, and with his further increased powers after regenerating, he'd likely be able to kick Conquest's ass, especially if playing smart. So again, I think Mark would win this one. Scenario 3, Conquest's experience versus Mark's adaptation. This scenario focuses on the core dynamic, millennia of experience versus explosive growth potential. Conquest has fought countless battles, mentored Omni-Man, refined techniques over centuries. When Mark tries something, Conquest has seen variations of it before. When Mark adapts mid-fight, Conquest has experienced countering adaptation. But Mark's growth rate is extraordinary. From Season 1 getting destroyed to Season 3 crushing Viltrumite skulls, that's compressed growth most Viltrumites take decades to achieve. His Viltrumite human hybrid biology might actually enhance his reactive adaptation beyond pure Viltrumites. The fight becomes a race. Can Conquest's experience let him end Mark before Mark's adaptation makes the gap insurmountable? Can Mark survive long enough for his biology to give him decisive advantages? Conquest's impaired regeneration is the timer working against him. Damage accumulates. Having one arm becomes more difficult as the fight continues. Meanwhile, Mark's full regeneration means he recovers from damage Conquest inflicts. Scenario 4, Rage Mode accessibility. The factor that turned their first fight was Mark accessing rage beyond his normal limits, biting Conquest's shoulder, crushing his skull with headbutts, fighting through damage that should have ended him.
Getting mad doesn't make you stronger. That's not how it works.
Can current Mark access that state without the extreme emotional trigger? In their first fight, civilians dying in front of him pushed him there. In a rematch, what triggers that level of intensity? If Mark can tap into rage mode deliberately, this fight shifts heavily in his favor. That version of Mark crushing Conquest's skull before Eve even intervened. But if rage mode requires specific emotional circumstances, Mark might be fighting at a lower ceiling than what Conquest experienced. The research from Season 3 shows Mark's rage biting Conquest's shoulder as desperate attack exemplifies his growth. Whether he can weaponize that rage deliberately determines how his rematch goes. Scenario 5, environmental and circumstantial factors. What if circumstances favor one fighter over the other? In their first fight, they were on Earth with civilians as collateral. They gave Conquest psychological leverage and forced Mark to fight while protecting people. In a rematch in empty space or uninhabited planet, that leverage disappears. Shared vulnerabilities like high-frequency sounds affect both equally, but Mark's training at GDA means he knows how to exploit those weaknesses better than before. Conquest knows them too, but lacks the systematic counter Viltrumite training Mark received. Mark's growth through training, battles, and near-death experiences positions him differently than their first encounter. But Conquest's millennia of combat mastery can't be dismissed. This is closer than it looks. So based on all of this, I think the overall winner for current Invincible versus Conquest is the GOAT himself, Invincible. If you enjoyed this video and want to see why Conquest versus Thrag isn't close, click the video on the screen.